There's just something so ominous about Seiya pretty much not acting like himself. What he said to Rista, our goddess character of, Cautious Hero, was just something that's not something he would normally say. It is very peculiar that he would legitimately say everything's going to be okay. Basically, everything's going to work out. It's not Seiya. When you think about Seiya, he doesn't leave things up to chance. He doesn't leave things up in the air for hypotheticals. He basically is overcautious. He works things out. He gets everything handled where it'll be completely handled the time he finally confronts it. And you could even say that, yes, he may take chances to some degree because he's overly cautious and he preps, but for him to legitimately say what he said within this episode towards the end, gonna be okay, and just the way he acted towards Rista and all that, it did not feel normal. And I don't know what necessarily is about to happen, or what's probably going to be revealed when it comes to Seiya's character, but it's definitely going to be something that's probably going to, I think, shock us all. And I don't even know probably if it's been officially revealed or something, even maybe in the main series, the light novel, manga, etc., whatever the original source is. But the point is, though, is that Seiya was not acting himself. The way he acted was literally like 100% a 180. Like, it was a completely different personality or a side to him that we really haven't seen thus far, and I'm really curious on what that is about, and maybe if it's potentially tied to whatever's going on with that goddess in the goddess realm that somehow acts very familiar to him and treats him kind of differently. But I'll leave that discussion for now. I'll leave that to the side. Let's talk about what this episode's about. So one of the big details that I like about this episode is that once again we get to see, Seiya's morals, how he acts, and kind of how his precious friends are around him. Now, he clearly did not say within this episode that everybody was his quote-unquote precious friends, but he pretty much said they were, especially with him calling, the two kids basically his precious baggage carriers, and then talking about how the goddess is the only one that could cook him food. He definitely views them in a way that's very beneficial. He does view them as very close, and he will even go out of his way to basically take caution to save them. And honestly, in all logical circumstance, he could have let the little girl die, and he could have just carried on and got the sword or whatever and been very strong. But when you really think about everything, it's just weird to see how he didn't accept something like that and he decided to save her. Because when you think about caution and everything that's been kind of set up since the very beginning with his character, yes, we have been shown that he does have good morals. I mean, he said that if he dies, it's basically over for everyone, so his life is technically very important, and so he does need to be cautious. That's something we learned very early on within the story of Cautious Hero. But even then, despite all of that, it made sense to get this weapon that could potentially take down the Demon King, the Demon Lord, and it was designed to be the one thing that basically could get rid of him. And for him, of all characters, that especially has taken the time to design and make weapons that are designed to take down certain types of enemies, for instance, the Dragon Killer or the two Dragon Killers within this episode of Cautious Hero, it shows that he does have interest in objects that are designed to take down certain opponents, like the Holy Water, etc. So seeing him kind of deny a weapon that is perfectly designed to bring down something like the Demon King feels very odd when you just think about the bare bones of his character. But then seeing him basically disregard it and try to save her shows his morals, how he actually is someone that has great kindness, someone that isn't all about results or all about someone that just wants to get rid of the opponent, etc. with the most efficient way. He is someone that will make his life a little bit harder on himself if it means to protect the people that he actually does care about. So that is fascinating. There was a lot of character development and characterization that Seiya got within this episode that I think many might, completely overlook. You might not even notice it because there was a lot of comedy within this episode as well, which, once again, comedy of this series is great. It's honestly at that level of Konosuba personally for me, and I cannot get enough of it. But despite all the comedy, there is a lot of serious stuff going on behind the scenes, like, for instance, what happened within this episode, and I am curious to see where the writing will take us because of that. Now, one detail I do want to point out, though, is how Seiya made the Dragon Killer swords, the two Dragon Killer swords. Now, we already know from the previous episode that he was basically synthesizing weapons, etc. using Rista's hair. Now, even though he was doing this, it was very messed up. He was finding random hair all around, collecting it, and making his weapons using her hair. It's very creepy, but when you really think about weapon crafting, etc., it does make sense that something like that would need to be used to create a godly weapon. I mean, think about, let's just say, an Elder Scrolls game, okay, or, you know, a Warcraft game, etc. You think about any, like, mainline RPG game, usually you use ingredients from certain individual creatures or people you encounter to create godlike armor and weapons. It fits perfectly with, let's say, just RPGs. And so him using something like Rista's hair to create godlike properties to a weapon or armor, it really does fall in line and make perfect sense, and it's not something that's too far-fetched, even though it is relatively creepy. So, getting into kind of how he did it, basically, Rista confronts him like, okay, so, you got my hair, how exactly did you do this? He stated, oh, I went into your room when you were sleeping, and I grabbed the hair, you know, plucked hair and all that, and I, used it to craft my weapons. And there was a scene that emphasized where he actually got that hair from. And it's this picture, and it really just speaks volumes on potentially what he did, and that is really what the animators were trying to imply with the way this image and the dialogue and everything was done. I'm just gonna say, whoa. I could definitely see this series having people that write doujins and all that type of stuff making stuff from what Seiya has done within this series. I could definitely see it, because it just, like, all signs point to that, if that is what that little image was emphasizing, like, oh, you know, pointing towards downward and all that, where he felt the hair. So, if that is the case, that's kind of messed up, and I wonder if Rista will ever find out that he actually did that or not. But, anyways, let's talk about the seeds that he bought, to also just how cautious, once again, he was within this episode. So, he, as always, he went to the market trying to figure out what he can get, and he found these apparent seeds that allow him to basically speed up, you know, quickly be able to move and speed up, use his weapon a lot faster, and so being able to use the blade technique that he learned in the previous episode, it'll definitely make him a lot faster, which is what he used to his advantage to be able to stop, you know, the Queen of the Dragons, basically, from executing the little girl within this episode. So, he was perfectly ready. However, there is something I would like to point out that I think many might not have noticed as well. If Seiya didn't personally go out of his way and prepare himself for what happened within this episode, he would have lost. Because, look at the facts here. When he was fighting the wall that, you know, the Dragon Queen was using when she transformed into that golden wall or whatever, if he wasn't as strong as he was, he didn't use those seeds, and he didn't learn the blade technique like he did, and also create dragon killer weapons, 2 of them, and make his level very strong like it is already, he would not have been able to even budge that dragon that was called basically the wall. He wouldn't have been able to do anything. He would have been just hitting a brick wall, not even been able to move her towards the ledge. You know, he would have theoretically have lost, and the girl would have died. So it's interesting to me, honestly, that even despite all of his preparations, how much he has prepared, he technically would not have been able to take down the Dragon Queen if it wasn't for how much time he put into it, which really speaks volumes about maybe what the Demon King is capable of. Because, I mean, for all purposes, for him, how much training he's done, how much he's tried to learn everything, for him to not even be able to, like, scratch the Dragon Queen like nothing, it really shows that the Demon King is going to be on a whole other level, and Seiya is honestly not prepared. So his cautious nature is honestly what's really saving them right now, and saving the world probably from destruction, because he's putting a lot of time and effort into it. And once again, people might think he's just being overly cautious, but if he wasn't taking this so seriously, you know, everybody would die. Which, speaking of everybody dying, there was something that was revealed in this episode which adds a very dark and grim tone, and that is the fact that pretty much over 70% of the entire world is destroyed, taken over. Most of the main factions, castles, armies, etc. countries are destroyed within this universe, and only scattered towns and villages are the only things that kind of remain, or maybe things that are kind of sealed behind, you know, sills and stuff, like, you know, the Dragon Village. So it's kind of scary to think about that, at this point in time, technically the world has already been dominated and destroyed. It's just the only reason why it's not fully destroyed at this point is because Seiya has been telling the goddess to let him go to the goddess realm, or the god realm, to be able to train. if he would have been staying in that realm and trying to train and get stronger, the world would already have been destroyed and killed at this point, because he wouldn't have had enough time to train, since time is very slow in the God realm. So it's just a very grim atmosphere that this episode kind of, you know, I guess, depicted and gave us, because it's just not something I think many of us have really thought of, because we know that this is an S-rank world. It's incredibly strong. It's not something that is a joke whatsoever. It is the best of the best, the hardest of all the worlds that you could potentially get, and for, you know, everything we have seen, it doesn't really seem like it has been that crazy. But now, after what we saw within this episode, it does make sense that it is a scary world. It is crazy, and if it wasn't for Seiya taking his time, but also going to the God realm to slow down time, the war would already been over. So yeah, you know, despite his cautiousness, he has pretty much saved the world already, or at least delayed the inevitable. So I think I want to kind of wrap it up there. It's a good episode of, you know, cautious hero. We do get to know now that he does think that his baggage carriers are very important to him, and that he basically, like I said, he sacrificed a godly weapon just to be able to, protect his baggage carrier, which shows that he's willing to cause problems for himself and kind of throw away caution for the sake of the ones he cares about. So that's layers to his character that I am very grateful for. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, you know, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below, because for some reason, even if you click the subscribe button, you don't always get notified. So if you want to get notified, hit that bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.